Hello and welcome back to the 11 Steps to Sirius JoY audio lecture series. I'm your heartfelt host and your Sensei to Sirius JoY, Christopher Witecki. This is episode 11, titled Step 9, I Act, I Am. In this lecture series, we are climbing the steps of human consciousness. I look at it as a pyramid. Each step sets up the opportunity for the next step. So far, we have climbed up 8 great steps, and oh, what a journey it has been, my friend. Today, I'm happy to embark on Step 9, titled I Act, I Am. In human consciousness, what you do is what you are. If you hop from leaf to leaf, then you're a grasshopper. If you fly gently around flowers, then you're a butterfly. I Act, I Am describes the process of taking action and therefore defining our human character. Step 9 is probably the most popular step out of all the 11 steps, maybe next to Step 5, which is I Think. Human beings love to take action. Humans love to see things move. We human beings love to witness our life in motion. Just as the planets are in constant motion around the sun, we only know if we've progressed if things have moved. In fact, something cannot even be considered alive unless it's moving in our consciousness, right? Anything that sits still, we actually assume to be dead. So motion is essential to life. Taking action is essential to motion. And taking action creates the character of how people perceive you and what you appear to be and who you really are. In the royal cast of inner characters that I've assigned to each of the steps, Step 9 has the most dynamic range. Step 9 can literally be the dumbest, most animalistic, most cruel and vicious part of a human personality. And at the same time, Step 9 can be the potential of a saving grace, a hero, and the strength in you to go on and survive. I am speaking of no other than the Royal Knight in shining armor, also affectionately called the Royal Dumbass. In psychology, we call this part of our personality the ego. In modern times, ego has become a bad word. That's because an ego is a very dangerous thing if unchecked. And why is this? Well, it's because ego, or Step 9, or the Royal Knight, is the part of you responsible for your very survival on Earth. The Royal Knight is the fighter in you, the hunter in you, the seducer in you, the athlete in you, the competitor in you, the achiever in you, and the survivor in you. In classic astrology, Step 9 rules the sign of Aries, the ram. The planet associated with Aries is Mars. And in natal charts, Step 9 rules the first house, which is a person's charisma and personal willpower. Aries have the reputation for being impatient. They just want to skip to the action and really get bored quickly. They are brazen, they are brave, and sometimes stupidly courageous. They take risks that others would never take. They fight obstacles and odds that others would buckle under. They are pushy, sometimes arrogant, but that's what makes them supremely focused on accomplishing whatever task is at hand. The Royal Knight within you is all these things. You could say it is the most primitive part of being human, the most animalistic, so to speak, and the part that every human being truly struggles with to become more evolved. So put simply, the knight in shining armor is the part of you that gets things done. The knight is here to carry out the orders of the king or queen and follows the commandment of the royal director, Step 8. But I am speaking now of an accomplished knight, one that has been groomed and trained over the years. When we are young, the inner knight is nothing but a dumbass, truly. The ego is impulsive, it's defensive, it jumps without thinking, it'll go too far or it'll fail to go far enough. If the ego, or Royal Knight, is untrained, the ego will pick fights with yourself and others until it learns, even the hard way. Since the ego always insists on doing, it mostly learns by trying and failing. In fact, rarely is success a benchmark of the ego's growth. Even when the ego wins, it's usually on to the next challenge. And unfortunately, the ego, or inner knight, does not take to losing very well. It takes a sophisticated knight to brush off its armor and jump back on that horse. Many young egos wish to blame others, or play unfairly, or be sore losers. Truly, all of the horrific and nasty behavior humans have come down to be known for really originated from an untempered Step 9 or untempered ego. In fact, Step 9 is entirely responsible for the concept of human behavior. Your heart can want it at Step 1, you can really feel it at Step 2, you can think about it all day at Step 5, but if you actually do it, that's a condition of Step 9. When you put ideas or any of the other steps into motion, it becomes a behavior. Behavior over time becomes a person's character. And you know how it goes down here on Earth. We judge you by what you have done, not by what you have said or what you have thought. To humans, if you can't do anything with it, it's useless. And therefore, the measure of what you have done or not done can also make you appear as useless to other people or useful to other people. Therefore, your actions, your behavior, and your character all add up to your potential success or failure on planet Earth. So I disagree with many of my contemporary lightwalkers out there. Humans need an ego. We were born with an ego. It's a good thing. Step 9 is a necessary step to manifest reality. In fact, according to the 11 steps to Sirius JoY, Step 9, which means to take action, is 100% necessary to manifest reality. One cannot just wish upon a star. You must get off your astro and do something about it. Just like I said earlier, if something is not in motion, humans assume it's dead. To law of attract, whether it's resources, attract support, finances, or even Hollywood buzz, the project has to be, quote, going somewhere. If your royal knight does not plant your flag into the territory that the king or queen wants, you cannot claim it as your territory. Putting ideas into action is 100% necessary to have power and produce abundance in the world. In fact, that's why ego has been the number one state of awareness by most nations. If you hijack the ability for the opponent to act or to move, you win. It doesn't matter what you love, what you feel, what you believe, what you belong, where you think, or even what God says. Step 9 is on top of the 11 steps to human awareness, and Step 9 always wants to be on top. The ego actually dominates the human conscious pyramid, and by nature, the human ego is a closed system of consciousness. It's designed to buckle down and push the instructions of the heart forward. But as modern warfare has taught us, the ego can also push the instructions of an inner dictator forward too. Whether an ego is a knight in shining armor or a dumbass depends entirely on whether the ego is receiving its instructions from the inner world or the outer world. Step 9 sits on top of 9 states of awareness before it. We just spent several episodes discussing those 9 states that come before Step 9. It literally sits on top of the entire inner world. Ahead of the ego is manifestation, Step 10, and what we become, Step 11. Therefore, it's the ego, or what actions we take, that technically bridge between the inner and outer worlds. Taking action is the point when you take your intentions of the inner world and you make it begin in the outer world. And because Step 9 sits on top of the inner world, our behavior represents what we feel on the inside of us, whether you are consciously aware of this truth or not. This is why people act out. If you have emotional issues from Step 2 from your inner royal baby, and you haven't taken care of it, you might act out based on those emotions. If you have heartbreak at Step 1 from the king or queen, you may act out those emotions. If you have a mental disorder at Step 5, or a boundary issue at Step 0, or even spiritual issues at Step 7, in every case leading up to Step 9, if you were unaware of these prior steps, you may be subconsciously acting them out. In fact, we discover ourselves by acting these issues out and then asking the questions, where did this behavior come from? The more asleep a person is, the more likely they are to act out what they are sleeping to. This is actually how God gets us to discover who we really are. We inevitably become it. And remember, what you be is what comes. So in the end, it is your behavior that actually determines what you will receive in reality, the final act. You know what I find funny is that if you meet Aries and get to know Aries, they always want to be number one. They're always like the first person to show up, the first person to raise their hand, and they're the first person to leave a movie early before the credits. But the truth is, they're number 9. They come 10th if you count the invisible step of step 0. There are actually 9 steps that must be achieved before a person is supposed to take any action according to the 11 steps to Sirius JoY. This is kind of the difference between kicking a ball and performing a golf swing. A dumb action is one that takes no thought or pre-planning, you just do it. Just hit the nail on the head with the hammer or just kick the ball. But a sophisticated action, such as getting a tiny golf ball into a hole 100 yards away, requires many conscious steps assembled into a perfect order and harmony before you actually swing. So it takes preparation before we act. In fact, you could say action is all about the preparation. So, Sensei, how does one train their dumbass to grow up into a knight in shining armor? Good question, Lightwalker. Well, the really cool thing about step 9 is that it's all about action. There's really nothing to think about. There's nothing to contemplate or even premeditate when it comes to practicing action. The more you practice, the more you'll become a master. And, conversely, you will never have a sophisticated ego unless you do practice. No matter how brilliant your theories are, if you don't try and fail and try again, you won't get any better at it. You literally won't get stronger unless you lift heavy objects. You must try and try again to become good at performing. So the best way to get good at action is to train your ego and to practice. Now, that said, you can come to the table properly prepared and ready to succeed. If you incorporate the 9 steps before step 9 in the 11 steps of Sirius JoY, you will be more likely to succeed than not when you do take that action. And remember, you must take action to put any manifestation into progress. You can't get around it without taking action. So let's review the 11 steps to Sirius JoY and imagine we're attempting to manifest a miracle. Let's say you want to manifest the sale of your current home in what we call a bad market. Your house is a good deal, but not many people, let's say, are buying homes like this right now, so customers are few. Should you take the action of putting the house on the market or not? Can you manifest the sale of the house? Should you act or not act? Should you be or not be? Well, let's take it through the steps. Step 0 is I protect. Can anything go wrong or hurt you by putting the house on the market? Can you lose something from it? Step 1, I love. Does your heart truly wish to sell the home? Step 2, I feel. Do you feel good about selling the home and moving onward with your life? Step 3, I believe. Do you believe the house is sellable? Do you believe the house is a good deal for the right buyer? Step 4, I belong. Do you belong in this house in this neighborhood, or do you belong in another house in another neighborhood? Step 5, I think. Do you think the details are in order? Do you think the price is right? Step 6, I receive. Are you prepared to receive an offer within 30 days? Are you prepared to move if that's the case? Step 7, I sense. Do you sense that there is a buyer out there in the world? And by the way, step 7 is super important about taking actions. We'll talk about this later, but what do you sense when it comes to this? Step 8, I decide. Do you decide putting the house on the market is your best thing based on all the steps we have reviewed? If you decide it's best, then you should take action and put the house on the market. So in simple steps, once the 9 steps before step 9 are in total harmony with the goal or direction you're aiming for, you are to put that idea into motion. So what do you actually have to do to make a manifestation? Basically, you take every action that your heart and mind can come up with that meet the criteria of the 9 steps before it. You might realize you need to list it with the realtor, put it on Craigslist, tell your friends and family. You take all the low-hanging fruit and put into motion everything you can think of. For safety precautions, every action you can take that falls in line with steps 0 to 9, you should actually do. But philosophically, as you know, it'll probably be only one of these actions that'll be the action that leads to the sale of the house. The future buyer will probably discover your house from only one of these ways you actually put it into market. That's where step 7 is very important, I sense. Only step 7, what the inner oracle has to say, can actually save you time of the knight in shining armor. Because if you listen to your intuition, you can take action only on the steps your spirit and guides tell you to take, thereby saving a lot of time and a lot of energy with false actions, because it's likely only one of those actions will lead to the desired result. The more you listen to what your inner oracle and entire inner life tells you, the less time and space you will waste taking the wrong actions. This is why when someone invites me to an event or an activity, I always meditate and ask my guides before I go, because honestly, I have so little free time in my life, I don't have any time to waste. The only thing that saves me from a waste of time is to ask my guides, is there something in this my heart wants to really do or receive? And let me tell you, it takes a highly disciplined inner guidance system for me to actually turn down something that sounds good that my inner senses say my heart is not really going to be interested in. So it takes discipline to turn things down. It also takes discipline to do something when my inner step 7 says I should do it, and maybe my ego, the royal knight, feels extremely lazy and doesn't want to, but my step 7 says, you better, there's something there for you. So it's not necessarily easy to get all this working the way we want to. Our intuition may tell us, and our ego may not want to do it. Our ego may want to do it, and our intuition tells us not to do it. Basically, the more in step you are with the 9 steps before step 9 will determine the potential for your success and save you the most time and money. Now, here are some thoughts or things to remember. In reality, a reaction to somebody counts just as much as an action does in reality. How you react often determines the outcome more than the first initial action. So you should always, as a measure, take as much time and space, step 0, to process before you ever react to anyone, online, in conversation, or in reality. If you want to master the game, take your time and space to aim. Also, you should know, if you do nothing or fail to act, it actually counts as an action in the big world of cause and effect. By doing nothing, you manifest more of nothing. If you don't turn the key or wave the magic wand, nothing happens in reality. I think this is sort of a safety measure God put on reality to make sure everything is in check. Another tip is, if you don't know what action to take, a ritual or symbolic action actually counts in God universe and the laws of attraction. This is why priests and witches and wizards do spiritual rituals. They do these rituals to make prayers be put into action and to help them to come true. Magic only happens if you put the intention, the spell or whatever, into action. This is why making a vision board can work. It can make you law of attract something. This is why writing down your ideas turns them into reality, because you wrote them down and put the ideas into action. And this is also why telling somebody you trust what you want to manifest also begins the first step of putting it into motion and making it manifest. And then the last tip may be the greatest point I have made in this entire episode, and one thing you should definitely listen to and ponder. If you force a new behavior within yourself, you will dynamically change the behavior of the steps below it. Remember, step 9 is king of the mountain. It is on top of all the steps except 10 and 11, of course, which we'll talk about. But that means that if you change your behavior on step 9 and you continue forcing that behavior and repeating that behavior and repeating that behavior, you'll actually synchronize the lower steps to that behavior. So for instance, if you're having a hard time, let's say, starting a diet, and you force yourself on the diet, in other words, you measure out how much you're going to eat and you stick to that particular eating, the other states of awareness, the cravings and the other states, will eventually fold to the action you behave. Therefore, for instance, if your mind is thinking this way and your emotions are feeling that way and your heart is going that way, you could, for instance, exercise or do yoga or do something physical that forces all these different states and characters in the moment upon your action. This is literally how boot camp happens with soldiers. They don't give the soldiers any time to act. They basically brainwash them, emotionally wash them. All the states get washed under that repetitive behavior. So if your inner voices are going every which way, a little exercise and ritual motion will actually help to change the perspective of all your states of awareness. So truly, there is something to be said about the benefit of going on a walk or taking a bike ride, truly. Motion will move all of your states of awareness into that motion and allow you to form a singularity. Once all of your states are in the same parallel motion, you will begin the process of step 10, which is I manifest. All right, my friend, that concludes our actions for step 9. I am so grateful you took the action to listen and grateful you told your friends about this series who are ready to take on their power and their happiness. And I will see you in the next episode for step 10, I manifest. Until then, remember I love you and live, love, be.
Live, love, be.